What makes Canada's position remarkable is not just what it has done, but what it has chosen not to do. When most countries face this kind of sustained pressure from the United States, they follow a predictable path. They rush to negotiate. They prioritize immediate relief. And they ultimately accept terms shaped under duress. Terms that look like a deal, but function like a concession. Under Mark Carney, Canada did something different. It absorbed the pressure. It allowed the situation to play out. It resisted every instinct to secure a short-term resolution at the cost of long-term leverage. That required political discipline of a very specific kind. Because in any trade dispute of this scale, the domestic pressure to act, to fix things quickly, to show results, is intense and relentless. But Canada didn't accelerate. And in doing so, it disrupted the one negotiating pattern Donald Trump has relied on most. Apply pressure, manufacture urgency, extract concessions before the other side can recalibrate. In this case, that sequence broke down. Canada recalibrated first. The pressure being applied to Canada may look like strength. But former Canadian Ambassador Derek Burney identifies a more complicated reality underneath it. When Trump faces setbacks, internationally, domestically, militarily, his approach to other negotiations becomes more impulsive and far less predictable. Right now, Trump is dealing with a war in the Middle East that has not gone as planned. His polls are falling. His cabinet is unstable. The atmosphere in Congress, according to Burney, is brittle. That context matters enormously because it means Canada is not facing a controlled, strategically confident negotiating partner. It is facing a reactive one, and a reactive partner is not the same as a strong one. When frustration drives strategy rather than calculation, the predictability that makes trade deals work disappears. And Canada, by staying patient, by refusing to match urgent. A major trade deal that holds North America together is now under review. And what was supposed to be a routine renegotiation has turned into something far more tense. The United States, under Donald Trump, came into this process with a clear expectation. Apply enough pressure through tariffs, through public messaging, through the negotiation table itself, and Canada would eventually fall in line. That expectation has not been met. Canada didn't rush. It didn't panic. It didn't concede. And that decision, quiet, deliberate, disciplined, is now reshaping the entire negotiation. This is the story of how patience became Canada's most powerful weapon. The Canada-US-Mexico Agreement, known as CUSMA, is entering a critical review phase. This should be a balanced process. It is not. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer has made a point of signaling publicly that negotiations with Mexico are moving faster than those with Canada. That contrast is not a casual observation. It is a tactic. By positioning Mexico as the cooperative partner and Canada as the difficult one, the United States is attempting to isolate Canada within a trilateral framework to create urgency, increase domestic pressure, and force Canada to accelerate its concessions before it is ready to make them. This is a well-worn playbook. Create the perception that delay carries risk. Make the other side feel like they are falling behind. And secure a deal shaped entirely on your terms. Canada has seen this playbook before, and this time, it is not following the script. The core assumption driving U.S. strategy is that Canada needs access to the American market more than America needs Canadian supply. The data tells a different story. Canada is the largest foreign supplier of uranium to the United States. The second largest supplier? Russia. Canada provides aluminum deeply embedded in American manufacturing. It supplies potash critical to American agriculture. It exports energy that powers American homes and businesses. These are not optional inputs. They are structural dependencies built into American industrial systems over decades, and they cannot be replaced quickly or cheaply. As Burney puts it bluntly, Donald Trump says he doesn't need anything from Canada. That is simply not true, and everyone in the room knows it. This is why Canada's trade diversification strategy, building credible alternative markets in Asia and Europe, is so significant. It is not about abandoning the United States. It is about ensuring that the relationship with the United States is a choice, not a constraint. And that changes everything at the negotiating table. What we are witnessing is not just a trade negotiation. It is a strategic test of how countries respond under sustained pressure from a larger power. And Canada's approach, deliberate, measured, resistant to urgency, is producing a result that most observers did not expect. Rather than being worn down, Canada has shifted the terms of engagement. Rather than negotiating from dependency, it is building the conditions for a more balanced conversation. The repeated comparison to Mexico is part of the same pressure campaign. But as Bernie notes, the core of this agreement is bilateral. Canada and the United States must ultimately resolve their own terms. The Mexico comparison is designed to influence, not to inform. There's also a deeper principle at work here. For any trade deal to hold, both sides must believe the result creates mutual benefit. That belief requires mutual respect. And, as Bernie observes, Donald Trump does not operate from that premise. Which means the challenge for Canada is not just to secure a deal, but to secure a deal that will actually be honored. In that environment, time and alternatives are not weaknesses. They are Canada's most valuable negotiating assets. The pressure will not stop. That is certain. Donald Trump's negotiating style is built around sustained pressure, manufactured urgency, and the expectation that the other side will eventually blink. The question Canada now faces, the question that will define this entire process, is whether it continues to treat patience as strength or whether it allows that urgency to dictate its next move. So far, the answer has been clear. Canada has not blinked. And if it holds that position, not out of stubbornness, but out of strategic clarity, it does not just secure a better trade deal. It redefines something much larger. It establishes how a middle power negotiates with a larger economy in a world where the old rules no longer apply. That is not a small thing. That is a model. And the world is watching to see if it holds. If you want to follow this story as it develops, the Cosmo Review, Canada's trade strategy, and what comes next, subscribe to Canada Today. We cover this every single day because what happens between Canada and the United States right now matters far beyond their shared border.